And now we welcome in CBS Sports NFL analyst Brady Quinn. Brady, you played at Notre Dame, so you know a thing or two about playing in cold weather. Thursday night's forecast, at Lambeau, it's 24 degrees, 20-mile-per-hour wind gusts, and a 14% chance of snow. This could be the first game of the season with below freezing kickoff. Aaron Rodgers, of course, has a bit more experience playing in the frozen tundra. He's 23-8, while Tannehill, he's just 6-4. How will the weather affect this game?
Well, the cold isn't that much of a factor unless there's a lot of wind. And here's how the two work together. When it's cold out, clearly everyone feels this. I have a hard time feeling your fingertips. Well, that comes into play as a quarterback where it's hard then to feel the grip of the football. If it's hard to feel the grip of the football, it's hard then to spin the football. Why is that important? If you get a lot of wind, you got to be able to cut through that wind. So that's the biggest key is, will there be wind with a 20-mile-an-hour wind gust play a factor? I'm seeing on the weather report right now, wind should be somewhere around 10 miles per hour. That won't be enough to impact the passing game.
Oh, well, that's good to know. All right, let's talk keys to win for both teams, starting with the home side. If you want to beat the Titans, well, you're going to have to figure out a way to stop Derrick Henry, which is easier said than done. Henry has had over 100 rush yards in 5 of his last 6 games. The Pack currently rank 28th in rush yards allowed. Can they take a page out of the Broncos playbook and limit the King?
They can try. I'm not sure they'll be able to do it. I mean, this has been a reoccurring theme for the Green Bay Packers for years. They've struggled to stop the run. It doesn't matter who the defensive coordinator's been. They haven't either had the personnel to do it, or they just haven't been able to put together the scheme and execute it. Bottom line is there's only been one game where they haven't given up more than 100 yards, and that was versus the Tampa Bay Bucks, who are the worst in the NFL this season. Derrick Henry, on the other hand, second in the league in rush. And I think the hard thing is the more carries he gets, the better he gets. And so sometimes, too, it's not only just trying to stop the run and load up the box against the Tennessee Titans and forcing Ryan Tannehill to beat you in the passing game downfield, but it's also the Green Bay Packers offense being able to get off to a fast start, playing from ahead, and forcing the Tennessee Titans not to be able to just sit on the ball, run the football, and then hand the football off all game long to Derrick Henry. And the last thing is offensively, Christian Watson, maybe that's the startup point for Rodgers and Watson, being able to hook up and having that connection that we were hoping for all season. I'm not sure Watson's going to be able to replicate what we saw last week with the 3 touchdown catches. But as far as 4 receptions over 100 yards, they're very capable of doing that with the way they're running the football and some of the play action, some of the shots off of that.
All right, it's never an easy task to walk into Lambeau and beat Aaron Rodgers at home, though this might be the time to do it. The Packers they're sporting their worst record through 10 games since 2016. Rodgers also appeared to re-aggravate his injured thumb in that strip sack in the second quarter versus the Cowboys. How can the Titans exploit the Packers' woes to claim a victory in Green Bay?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you got to be able to put pressure on Aaron Rodgers. He's not quite as mobile as he used to be. And this has been a defensive group that has really come around since the loss of Harold Landry earlier in the season. And I think you would be worried about some of the mismatches on the outside in coverage, but they should be fine in this particular one because outside of Watson, no one's really displayed themselves. So I would expect them to load up the box, look to try to stop the run. Jeffrey Simmons, who is a key piece of this defensive front, he should be back. He was a little bit limited today in practice, but he will be able to be back and start in this one. So really it's about eliminating what has been their fire starter on offense, their most consistent player, and that's Aaron Jones, and then trying to put pressure on Rodgers. And on the flip side, we talked about, just keep running the football with Derrick Henry.
All right, well, before we let you go, we need your pick to win. Who are you going with, Packers or the Titans?
You can't pick against the Packers at home in Lambeau. I know the season hasn't gone off to the start that they had hoped for, but I do think this one will be close. So we're talking about like Aaron Rodgers' end-of-the-game heroics in order to win this one. I just think that's where this team is at this point in time. So, look, the Packers are given 3 points. I think this one is going to stay within that number if you catch my drift, but the Packers win.
Go, Pack, go. All right, thanks so much, Brady. Let's take a look at the percentage of wagers on the spread. According to our friends at Caesars, the public is pretty split here, with only 52% of wagers on the Packers to cover by a field goal at home. And now for the gambling perspective, we welcome in the czar of the playbook, Emory Hunt, and Mr. Donkey Parlay himself, Mike McClure. Fella, the line on this game has been on the move. What looked like a pick'em just last week has moved to Green Bay, favored by a field goal. The total has been bet down as well, currently hovering at 40. Emory, what's your take?
Listen, I like the under here in this game. I think both teams will play competitive defense. I know the Titans' offense kind of yields itself to being a shorter game. And Green Bay's offense, I feel like we'll see a tougher challenge. Despite them playing a really good defense in Dallas, they'll see a tougher challenge, in my opinion, coming from this Titans secondary. I've talked about this before, how they pressure the ball. They have great ball awareness, great ball instincts. So they challenge you up front and also on the back end. So I think this one will be a lower scoring game, kind of on par for Thursday night. So I'm going to go under.
I like that play on the under, Emory. That's where I lean as well. But my bigger play here is going to be the Packers -3. I bet the Packers last week. I've got to do it again here. One thing they have when they play at Lambeau is they have a huge home field advantage, one of the biggest in the NFL. That is magnified on a short week here for the Tennessee Titans. Looking at the weather in this game also, we're talking 24 degrees at kickoff with some wind, exactly where Aaron Rodgers is comfortable. I love this spot, though. There are a number of key injuries on the defensive side. They're going to be without Bud Dupree, Amani Hooker. The kicker, Randy Bullock, is out as well. Jeffrey Simmons listed as questionable. I think he ends up giving it a go, but certainly something to monitor based off the practice reports so far this season. Give me Packers -3, as I think this number should be 4.5.
I love these picks. I'm going to tail both of those. Hard to bet against the Packers in the frozen tundra, especially when they just put up 31 points versus the Cowboys. And 80% of TNF games have actually gone under 40. So I love those bets. All right, let's move on to the prop market. The Pack had over 200 yards rushing against the Cowboys last week. With Rodgers re-aggravating that thumb injury, it's likely that they're going to turn to their run game yet again. Emory, are you looking at any running back props for Green Bay?
Am I looking at any running back props? You know who I am? You know what position I play? Of course I'm looking at running back props. A.J. Dillon in that run game going up against a banged up, beat up defensive front seven of Tennessee. And I think going over 33.5 yards rushing is the way to go for A.J. Dillon. It seems like a very low number, and normally I'm always on totals, but I think this will be about run game and defense. They'll try to match what Tennessee does to them. I like him going over this number.
I like that play, Emory. I'm going to go with Allen Lazard, though. I'm going to attack his over on receiving yards at a very friendly number of 47.5 right now. He took a little bit of a backseat last week to Christian Watson, who had a huge game. However, Lazard still managed 45 yards in the passing game, putting him very close to this number in a game where he really wasn't involved. I expect a more even distribution in targets just because of the way the Titans like to defend here in the secondary. I like Lazard to get loose on a play or two in this particular spot. This is a number when he's got healthy options out on the field that we should see around 55.5, 56. I think it's an absolute gift. We're catching it under 50 here.
All right, Emory, you like a running back prop, so let's talk about the king here. Derrick Henry has a great opportunity to regain the lead in rushing yards this week for the NFL. His prop bet is set to just over 100. I'll start with you, Mike. Are you making a play on King Henry, or what's a Titans prop that you like for tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm going to stay off King Henry to start. He's someone I like to look at live betting depending on what the game scripts are starting to look like. So I'm going to go with this quarterback, though, Ryan Tannehill, over 7.5 rushing yards. Incredibly friendly number here. This is a guy who would routinely be 18 to 22 in the prop market over the last season. He looked healthy and fine in that last game. Never any doubt that he was going to play the last game. Now we come here to Green Bay in what should be an incredibly competitive game where we're talking neutral or trailing game script. Again, I don't think they're winning. I don't think we're seeing 3 kneel downs at the end to remove 3 rushing yards here from him. Give me Ryan Tannehill over 7.5 rushing yards.
Here's what I like about cold weather games in terms of the passing game. You kind of want to shrink things because you don't want to have to take off in a cold weather. It's going to really rip up your hamstring. So expect the short to intermediate passing game to be where Tennessee would try to live. Coming off play action, to me, that screams going to your big body wide receiver, your rookie, Treylon Burks, over 34.5 yards received. And I think we'll see a lot of dagger routes, a lot of short end routes for him. And I think he'll be able to make those catches, try to break a tackle instead of trying to go deep down the field and on those takeoff routes, because that's really tough to do on a cold night like it will be in Green Bay.
Emory and Mike, always a pleasure. Thanks for your time. Let's take a second look at those picks. Full game side, Emory is going with the under the total, while Mike is backing the Pack. Emory likes A.J. Dillon over his rush yards for the Packers, and Mike says Tannehill will also be using his legs. Took him over 7.5 rush yards for Tennessee.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.